Hello students, welcome back. So in this session we are going to be studying RAG. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. So at some point in your work you must have used a large language model. It could have been like a chat GPT or any one of the tools. And basically what you did, you as a user, you asked a question and then your large language model, it responded back. Now, can this large language model, in other words, this chat GPT, let's say if you use chat GPT, can it answer questions about your personal files? So let's say this is your personal files. Can it answer question related with that? And the answer is no. And RAG solves these types of problems. So what exactly is a RAG? Well, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, and it's a technique where your generative AI model, that could be this right here, it retrieves relevant information from an external source, maybe from this. So this is your external source, these are your files right here. It gets the information from here, and then it uses this information along with the question you asked to give you a better, more accurate response. So now let's try to understand, why do we actually need RAG? So let's understand the problem first. Well, this is the problem with your normal large language models. Well, they are trained on a fixed data. Your training data is fixed. Also, they do not know any recent updates. So suppose this training data was, this model was trained, let's say in 2018. So anything that came after 2018, your large language model would not be able to answer those questions. Also, they can hallucinate, they can make up answers. So for example, let's say you ask this question: what is my company Loxford Academy policy? That's the question you ask. And a normal large language model, it will either guess or it will give a generic answer, and that's because it doesn't have access to this data. So how does a RAG solve this problem? Well, RAG connects your model to your own data source. Your data source could be PDF, it could be databases, website, company documents, could be anything. So suppose you ask a question: who founded Loxford Academy? And you ask this question to the large language model. This model is connected to your company private files, and then it's going to generate the answer. It's going to generate the response back to the user. So now your flow, it becomes something like this. The user, he asks a question. That'll be something like this. Your RAG system is going to search the relevant documents and extract useful information. That would be this right here. And then it's going to generate an answer based on your data source. That would be this data source. So the result is going to be you getting more accurate answer and more up-to-date information. Now let's take a look at the RAG architecture and the process that goes in creating a RAG system. So there are two phases. Phase A, in that you populate your vector database. That's the first thing you do. So in order to populate your vector database, you follow these steps. Number one, you collect your data. This is called data collection. So this step right here is your collection of data. Number two, chunking. It means you break your data into small pieces. That would be this step right here. So you have, let's say, a PDF file. You break it into chunk 1, chunk 2, chunk 3. You just separate your data into different small pieces. That's all it is. And then you do embedding. What it does, it converts your chunks, converts your text into vectors using some type of machine learning model or AI model. So in this case, that would be this step right here. So I'm taking my chunk, it creates an embedding. Chunk 2 creates an embedding. Chunk 3 creates an embedding. Number 4, storage. Now you store your vectors in a database, and these databases are called vector database. So now this will be your number 4 step right here. So you store all these embeddings right here, this corresponds to each chunk, into this vector database. This is how you populate your vector database in phase A, which is the initial phase. And then you have the second phase, phase B. This is where the user asks a question. So there are two parts to that: retrieval and generation. In the retrieval case, your user, he asks a question. Let's say the question is, who founded Loxford Academy? So this question comes over here. It goes into a model, and this model creates a question embedding. In other words, it converts this into a vector right here. Now this question, which is a vector, it goes to the vector database. That would be this right here, and it's going to perform semantic search. So based on this question embedding right here, okay, these are your embeddings right here, it's going to try to find similar documents. And once you get the similar documents, it's going to produce an output. Now it's going to generate a lot of documents, so you're going to rank them, which one are important, which one are less important. So you're going to rank the results, and then after that you're going to pass this retrieved data plus the question that the user asked into the prompt to your large language model. That would be this right here. And after this, your large language model is going to generate an answer, and that answer goes to the user. So what type of prompt do you pass to your large language model when you're giving this right here, this step? Well, this could be an example of a prompt right here. For example, I could say answer only question from the context. Context is this right here, context that came from the vector DB. So when I got my answer from my vector database, it gave me result right here. This result is this one right here. So I'm passing this result into my prompt. And I'm also passing this question. This is the question that the user asked. User asked, who founded Locksport Academy? So this whole prompt goes into your large language model right here. So the key benefits of RAG is this. It reduces hallucination. It does not make up answers. It keeps your answers updated, and also it works with your private data pretty well. So where do we use RAG? Where exactly is used? Well, it's used by chatbots. When companies they use chatbots, they use RAG. Also for customer support system, for legal document search, for medical record assistant, for internal knowledge assistant. All these records are stored over here. This one. This is your company's private information. So you can use these RAG in these types of situations.